Hello and welcome back, and today we are going to look at surveillance on both the Synology and QNAP platforms. We're looking at the DS920 Plus and Surveillance Station utilising an BTRFS file system, and we're going to be comparing it against that of the QNAP utilising the TS920AX, which is utilising a ZFS based file system, and QVR Elite. Now, throughout the course of this video, I am going to be utilising the popular software OBS to record this, and at the same time, I am also going to be taking advantage of the web browser based access, although there are going to be some addendums on that with regards to clients along the way, and I do think that's worth touching on early doors, because we are doing quite a lot of graphical stuff today. We are utilising two Reolink IP cameras for this test, and we're just going to be looking at the user interface of these programs and the strengths and weaknesses of both brands in this area with regards to surveillance. Now, we are accessing right now via the web browser, as you can see here, but what I will add very, very early doors is that the Synology Surveillance Station application can almost exclusively be run with just a web browser. You don't necessarily have to have the client applications, and it does allow you to access all of the tools, all of the services very, very easily without having to install any other applications along the way, which I know a number of you are less keen on generally. Whenever you utilize this software, you want to be able to access it anywhere, and although you want client applications, of which there are several, such as if we go into the App Center here on Synology Surveillance Platform, you can go to the Clients tab down the bottom and it will list a whole bunch of client applications that you can go through and install on your surveillance setup. While it does that there in the background, sorry, my network is rather busy, you can see that you can download those client tools there, but at the same time they're not hugely urgent because you can access the live feed directly from your web browser and all of the cameras inside. There's me there. I'm just going to wave at the camera for you. As you can see, I've got boxes and paperwork all over the place there underneath me. Slight lag factor there. And of course, this camera here has pan tilt zoom that we can control within that interface that we're going to talk about in a bit. Now, let's put that back to half screen. In the case of QVR Elite on the QNAP platform here, as good as this software is, they still don't have the ability to access the cameras via a browser-based live feed to the same degree. You can go into the camera settings if you choose, and again I've got two cameras installed, and you can share access to that camera utilizing some of the config options. Relatively straightforwardly, but me personally, I like being able to access via the web browser. So for the QNAP surveillance, in order to see the full extent of the camera feed and everything you can do, you need to install the client application. You click here and it will download. If you've got it installed, once you click it, it will open up the client application on your desktop, as you see here, and then from here, as long as you've saved all the information, it will go straight in. If you haven't saved the information, it will invite you to add your login information. As you can see here, there's a slight lag, of course, due to the screen recording software we're using, but from here you can create your own setups here for all of your cameras. And again, there I am, waving there on screen. You can find out lots of information about CPU and memory resource, both on the client device and on the NAS server while you're working. And this is a far more detailed bit of kit with the whole historical data there. The cameras have been running, of course, all the way through the night. So there's like when no one was here. And again, you can flick between both of the cameras while doing that. You can have one camera accessing as a live feed, or at the same time, I'll be honest, if I looked at this and a ghost walked past the camera, I might scream my head off. But you can go back to the live feed at any time on either camera, so you can look at the past here on the left camera and the present here on the other. And there's a present, I'm just going to wave again. But there's still no avoiding, and you can see there I've already got a triggered motion alert here that's now been activated by that movement, and that's something I've set up in advance, hence all those red lines down there that denote all of that activity there of motion from the motion alert that I created earlier. But of course, it is a shame that we can't access that complete control deck here via the web browser. You've got your camera licenses, you've got a lot of support and services, but you are a lot more reliant on the client app here on the QNAP tool, as you can see here on screen. Let's flick that back to live. Now, You can save this setup if you want on the QNAP tool. So on the QNAP tool, for example, every time you open it up, if you haven't saved a configuration by clicking obviously the save icon here and then call this one maybe default, then every time you open it, you'll have to preset these cameras. But now I've saved that, you can now have this set up every time you open it up. And there's more you can do with that as well. Say, for example, you want to switch to another stream when you set up the cameras. If you've got a dual or multi-stream camera that has different quality levels of recording simultaneously, you can flick between them here and even choose whether you want to use hardware acceleration, so embedded GPU or graphics cards on your client device like my laptop, and then allow the cameras and the recording of QVR Elite to take advantage of them. Now from here you've got lots of stuff you can do, such as picture-in-picture that allows you to focus, such as that bin there that I really need to empty. Down there you can focus on it far directly, or maybe even the clock there in the background. And again, that other feed has all of the controls as well, such as pan, tilt, zoom if you've got it pre-equipped on the camera, and zooming in and audio and taking snapshots as well. Just clicking it and then saving a photo if you choose locally to your system. Lots of other options there on the side. And again, you can do that on multiple cameras if you choose right there. So I'm going to wave again. And from there, that camera again has all of those preset options. And you can do that to quite a high extent with all of the multiple cameras, as well as creating different kinds of feeds as well if you choose. So you can flick between the one camera. You can do a rotation that will flick between each of the cameras one by one. And all of this can be done very easily and edited very, very fast. Alerts and more are handled on the side here with event notifications that you can access, be they photo or video based, depending on the alert settings you created. And of course, if you have set up alerts to happen via email, alerts to happen via SMS, and again, you can really fill this feed with quite a lot of cameras very, very easily indeed. And again, if we had more cameras to play with, we could add them all here. Right now we are having a busy network because we're trying to access the same two cameras a bunch of times, so this isn't really fair on QNAP. This is more about the camera outputting a lot of that footage simultaneously. So if I wave, as you can see now, all of these feeds are now showing that camera, and within each of these we can create picture-in-picture. So again, we can monitor different corners if we so choose. If we flick to this camera, we can then do picture-in-picture here of the clock. And that entire camera feed is happening in real time. And as you can see, the alerts that I've set up, and I will show you how it's done, are being triggered. And they can all be monitored here, or if we have plugins, we can switch and show shots and drag these into the feed as well. And again, with individual cameras, we can flick to the past if we choose, and then in this camera we can monitor something that's happened in the past over time, rather than flicking. There we go, we've got this camera here in the past. We can select different time periods if we choose for each camera, so you can have the same feed but some monitoring the past and some monitoring the present. You can hear the fans on my laptop starting to ramp up there. Now you can fast forward through them very easily. You can skip between different alerts if you choose of motion, or change playback speed with quite a lot of ease. There's a lot of configuration options as well. If we go into the settings menu, there's tutorials as well, or create a whole video wall if you choose quite easily. And a lot of the configuration is done very easily within the client application. Now, let's move away from the Synology application, from the QNAP application now. We're going to close it there in the background. There's lots of other things it can do as well. Let's save that feed, in fact. Let's save that there and just call it multi. And again, we'll save that because we will be coming back to it later in the video, but there's lots of other options for your surveillance setup in the QVR platform here, with QVR Elite and of course Pro on the standard QTS platforms. And there's lots of configuration and flicking between those preset modes that we've just set there. And there's a lot of stuff that is kind of hinged on your own powerful cameras and powerful clients, such as if you've got a powerful enough or well-equipped camera, you can enable everything from alerts based around AI recognition that we'll talk about in a bit, and movement and distance triggering as well that we'll talk about later. But for now, let's come out of QVR Pro, let that app shut, and now we're going to switch to Surveillance Station here on the QNAP. Now, on the Synology, sorry. Now, on the Synology side, let's allow that to reframe that size. We can have a look there at their live feed. Now, their live feed here on screen, all very, very present. Very, very straightforward, very, very fluid, and all working within the web browser. And again, the controls for pan, tilt, zoom. I don't know if you noticed on the QNAP, they had a control panel on the bottom right that allowed you to move pan, tilt, zoom cameras. But on the Synology, you can control these cameras via the web browser very easily, like so. Press that button there, rotate the camera very easily. And again, that also goes for utilizing the zoom as well. You can use the touchpad for your zoom if you choose, or if you are utilizing a camera that has optical zoom, those options are built in as well. So if we go to this camera here, we can go to drag and zoom, and then boom, we have got that drag there, and we can create separate profiles, but it's worth highlighting that you will need additional licenses to open up a lot of the menu panels. A lot of them are visible straight off the bat, and you can manage and change the level of cameras that you see on screen. But I think there's a lot more that you can do with a single camera. You can see my arms flailing there while I talk on the control feed of the QNAP, and that's largely why you need the client readily available. Now, you can change a lot of the stream settings if you want. So you can change performance versus picture quality if you choose. A lot of the options with regards to playback. Streaming patrols, whether you want to set between cameras or set between different video streaming feeds within the system. And create patrol patterns and more, as well as enabling audio alerts such as dogs barking if a certain trigger is actioned. If we go into the alert panel, we can see a history of alerts. We've not created any alerts. I'm saving them for later in the video. And from here, if we have uploaded an EMAP, something the QNAP has as well, to be fair, you can upload digital maps, which you can then add the locations of cameras on to get a 3D view of alerts happening in real time. So that's largely it. From here, we can see the live feed layout here. We've set it to automatic, and we can start customizing and adding different panels if we choose. So in this one, for example, we can add cameras to each of those feeds, but again, being the ability to be able to create multi-feeds in the layout is slightly different. We can change a lot of these, change the feeds so they're slightly larger, add that camera back into there. But I think the multi-stream from a single camera output that we saw earlier is not quite as easy and as intuitive as it was on the QNAP platform there. And again, you can upload and add new and create preset defaults to flick between for different layouts as and when needed for your security team to monitor. Now, if we go into the individual control patterns for each camera, we can edit a lot of the settings. This is the IP camera feed. So again, if we switch back into a side-by-side view and remove that live feed there, we can see how we configure cameras differently on both platforms. So if we have a look at the camera settings here, let's delete one of these cameras on both of these. We're going to get rid of the camera that is on IP107 on both of these devices. So let's delete this camera here. Going to remove it. Delete IP camera 2. Get rid of all of the recorded files if there are any. Same goes for the QNAP camera here. Going to delete camera 2. Going to remove it there in the background. It's going to disable that camera for us, as we can see. Oh, apparently we can't delete it because of the event management setting, so it doesn't allow us to remove a camera unless we've disabled event triggering instances there. And if we have a look there, we can have a look and get rid of our events and schedules. Let's get rid of those. We can see, enable recording, apply those settings. And that should allow us to remove that camera. Oh, apparently we still can't because of the event management here. I mean, on the one hand, I'm impressed that it's allowing us to do this. It has these provisions in place. but it doesn't half annoy me that on this video I'm trying to show you guys how to remove a camera. There we go, we've deleted the event management that we'd installed on the camera, and now that camera has been disabled for both platforms. So let's show you how easy it is to add a camera. It's still deleting it there on the QNAP, but it has been removed on the Synology, but it has been deleted on the QNAP. So QNAP first. To add a camera, we click Add. We then scan our local area network for a camera, and it will find that camera on the local area network. As you can see, it's found the camera on IP 107. The Synology, in the meantime, is resetting its available cameras and double checking. And right now, because this camera is being engaged with on the QNAP, it will make its accessibility somewhat different there on the Synology. And again, that drop was because of the QNAP rule settings that we just employed. We can see it's found the camera via OnViv. We have to log in, and luckily this camera I've only set light security settings to this video. Click Test. We'll get a green tick if it finds the camera. From here, click Next. It will ask us if we want to modify recording and stream settings as well as the recording locally. I'm going to do that now, but you don't have to. You can just skip if you choose. Click OK. From here, you can say what kind of protocol you want running. If you want a multiple stream or a single stream, I'm going to go for multiple. You can say whether you want recording to take place, of which I'm going to say yes. And you can also preset a recording schedule if you choose. I've already set a schedule here, known as Schedule 1, and we're going to go ahead and allow that to happen, as well as audio recordings can be made too. So click Next. Next, it will say the camera has been added, and you can look into event management. And with event management, this is where you can set rules for triggers to take place. And the triggers can actually be pretty diverse. We're going to go for Rule 1. And this, we're going to go for a new trigger here. We're going to let that be a daily scheduled trigger. Then click Next. Then you have to say the if what, then what setting. So, for example, for camera 2, that we're setting right now, we can say whether we want it to be motion detection, an alarm such as hard drives being full or a camera be disconnected, audio detection, cross line, so a drawn line across the camera feed. If something crosses that line, an alert will take place, and lots of other, from PIR detection, which is the more intelligent detection system, very much dependent on the cameras you use, tampering detection, and there's AI based ones as well, but again, lots of them based on the cameras you're using or the NAS that you're using. Lots of options, including temperature too, one that's growing in popularity. So for now, we can go for just bog standard motion detection, apply it as we're going to in this camera, and then click OK. And then we've done if there's motion detection, we can then say what the action is. What do we want the action to be? We can have that the camera starts recording, set an alarm to go off. We can assume camera control, and that's if you're using a tracking camera or you have a control source, as well as push notifications to your desktop system, email, and text as well. Lots of options there. So let's go for event recording on camera 2 if there is a trigger of motion detection. And then you can go for specifics and rules. So some things can happen where the rules threshold can be only record 10 seconds, only record if motion is a certain number of pixels, and more. Then click Next, and there you go. It's now created the rules for that camera, which can then be triggered on and off quite easily. And there you go. That's how to add a camera right there on that system. On the Synology, things are a little bit more user-friendly, it has to be said. But once again, as per Synology, it's made a great deal more simple. Yet, if you are already quite well versed in NVR surveillance, you may find it a little disappointing. So, for now, go into the IP camera settings, and we want to find that new camera. We're deleting that camera. That camera should have been removed from our listing here, as we can see. But for now, we can go to Add a Camera. We'll go for the complete setup option. We'll scan the local area network. And again, if you're using a camera that's on Synology's own list of supported cameras, it will appear here. Otherwise, if it's an OnViv utilizing that generic control, we can go for here. And there we are, IP 107, we found the camera. We've renamed the camera, OnViv 3 perhaps. We utilize its login information, click Test, and it will find the camera. and we can see the camera running there in the background. We then click next. Then it will ask us to assign streaming profiles, and again, this is because we've gone for the complete setup. We can change the FPS, we can change image quality, recording quality, the 3-tiered streams that we can flick between and what quality we want them to record, very much dependent on the camera, as well as the recording settings and codec utilized. Again, very camera specific. Then you can do the recording time of events and alerts, as well as how much storage space you want to utilize when cameras are recording. But it's worth highlighting that, of course, files will be recycled if you want, so they can overwrite the oldest files, as well as changing the unit of recording. Do you want them to be in blocks of 5 minute, 10 minute, 15 minute, etc., etc., as well as where they're saved on the NAS. A number of these settings are available on the QNAP, but they are in a pre-designated tab known as the recording storage tab there. And from here, this is where you can change and alter a lot of the recording configurations, such as recycling and the size of individual files as well, running in the background. Then the recording stream on the Synology camera here, set to continuous by default, but you can click the maybe delete tab if you don't want it to record. For example, when you're in the office doing a 9 to 5, you can then set it 9 to 5, it won't record, with perhaps motion detection happening there on the weekends. Lovely intuitive there, all in the background, all drag and drop, and continuous recording maybe at night midweek. From there, click next, and there you go. There's the settings all set up, and now it's activating and adding our camera. All of the options can be preset and changed, and you can import and export pre-existing configurations if you have them. And remember, all of these things are available in the default base software that they provide with this, although there are only 2 camera licenses on both platforms, QVR Elite and Surveillance Station. QVR Pro currently arrives with a great deal more software options built in as well. Now, what are the advantages between each of these systems? I would say that the QNAP platform offers a great deal more control, offering add-ons of AI surveillance support in QVR Face, QVR Door, and being able to take advantage of a number of cameras' own AI-assisted hardware as well. Synology, on the other hand, has their own AI-powered NAS in the DVA3221, but it does less of a job of taking advantage of AI hardware in cameras than QNAP. It does support a number of AI Axis cameras in their own support section, but I think QNAP supports a wider range of camera hardware in OMVIV, not just in their own supported list of cameras. On the Synology side of things, however, Synology have their own application center that allows you to add a number of features, and ones like live broadcasting cameras to YouTube, taking advantage of live cam and turning mobile phones into IP cameras here on the surveillance platform from Synology in the first party. The evidence integrity checker, something I've never found cause to use personally. I can imagine a lot of people taking advantage of it. Also, their smart time-lapse option allows pre-recorded footage to be browsed a great deal more easily in their timeline via the web browser. So as you see here, we have these cameras that were running during the night and being able to stream through them in real time and a great deal more speedily. So if we go ahead and click play on this recording on this camera up here, because we've deleted the recordings from the previous camera, we can increase that playback speed all the way up to 100 times, and it's done very fluidly, although maybe OBS on my laptop may be struggling here. And again, these results can be shared. You can look at a lot of the image enhancement options in real time while it's happening. You can even watch a video stream whilst looking at older footage too. A lot of bespoke options, and the beautiful thing is that they are available both via the web browser and the Synology client application. There is parity between these two platforms, something that is not present on the QNAP QVR platform, and of course those application add-ons being within the App Center, and there's lots of great Axis ones with I/O door control and IP speaker support as well, something QNAP has, but the app options aren't so readily and obviously available here. Now, if we move back and flick that back there onto the QVR Elite, you can switch back into the App Center of your QNAP NAS and install apps here, but this is on a QuTS platform, and right now there are more apps available with AI recognition, facial recognition, and QVR DAW on QVR Pro than there are on QVR Elite. A quick Google of QNAP's own QVR and QVR Elite section do show a number of tools readily available, but if we look up QVR, we go to all apps there and look up QVR, you'll find that right now that's the only app available in the QTS 4.5.1 layout. There is support on QuTS and QTS, but not in Elite, unfortunately, for using web cameras, as well as Surveillance Station, another surveillance platform from QNAP, all included, which you have to give them props for, as well as a range of client applications readily available too for iOS and Android, and of course the client apps too. And the ability to add phones as IP cameras, but I think in terms of surveillance, I think Synology are still winning this game, and they've invested a great deal more into their camera system than QNAP. Although, it has to be said, there are more hardware options and better access to the AI-supported camera framework across the broader range of QNAP devices and their own QVR Pro system than Surveillance Station. It's just Surveillance Station is far more accessible and far more fluid via the web browser and client in its parity than the browser-based QVR system that heavily requires the utilization of client apps. One last advantage I've not really touched on that I should really is that on the QVR platform you of course have HDMI outputs. You can create a standalone HDMI keyboard video mouse setup on the QNAP platform for a standalone surveillance system that can still be accessed over the internet in a number of places and over the network, rather than the Synology platform, which is only network and internet based. There are dedicated KVM Synology surveillance systems out there, but they are tremendously underpowered in the VH and NVR system. Even their own DVA GPU equipped NAS, DVA 3219 and DVA 3221, neither of them have an HDMI out, despite them having GPU cards inside. But this has been comparing surveillance on these two platforms. Again, if you want intuitive, user-friendly, easy, and I would argue a slicker experience, go for the Synology surveillance platform on their DSM system. And again, we're looking at the 1621 Plus today. If you are looking for a more equipped, more hardware-enabled, and more diverse and easier and more more multi-platform accessible surveillance system, and with of course KVM setup, go for the QNAP one with QVR Elite and QVR Pro, because although you will need the client app, it's still damn fine, and I think it brings a lot more to the table. It just needs a little bit more learning along the way. I'm going to move my hands across all of these cameras, but otherwise, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, click like and subscribe. And of course, to learn more, I will be looking at both these platforms in greater depth in the coming days. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.